Well, here we are. It's time for another edition of Jonesing for Football. Bill Jones in the Red Room in Dallas, Cody Winstead in the Jonesing for Football studios in Philadelphia. And Cody, look who we got off the elliptical machine this week. It's Babe Laufenberg.
Well, thank you, boys. And as you know, I do my elliptical and I listen to the Jonesing for Football podcast, and I love it. And I'm always texting Cody, hey, when's the next one coming out? So my question to you is, when I get on the elliptical here, do I need to listen to this since I actually participated in it?
I can answer that. The answer is yes, because we need all the downloads and listeners possible. Yes. And of course, baby, this is going to be a great conversation. So it'll be fun the first time we have it, which is now, and the second time, which is when you listen on the elliptical.
All right. Well, before we get started, Cody, I need you to do me a favor. I know your buddy's with Giardi, right?
Yep.
You tell him I'm coming after him. I heard on a podcast a couple of podcasts ago, maybe, that he was number one download and I was number two. I'm tired of being a backup, and I don't mind backing up Aikman. But when I'm backing up Girardi, that's a whole nother ballgame. You tell him I'm coming after him.
I will pass the message along. And I actually did look at the numbers this morning, and his two podcasts are actually number one and number two, with this one with you last year being number three. So I'm assuming that this will now be number one after we talk some Cowboys here.
Well, so, as you guys both know, there hasn't been a repeat winner in the NFC East since 03-04 when Philadelphia did it. Girardi ain't repeating this year either, baby. Okay.
I like it.
You know what I got out of that, though, what Cody just said, babe, is that you're not just the back right now. You're not only the backup to Girardi, but you're the backup to the backup.
Might as well be on the damn practice squad.
All right. It's Cowboy camp time. It's training camp time. We had Hall of Fame game this year has the Raiders and the Jags, so they were the first to report. And now this week, the Cowboys on a jet plane headed to Oxnard, California. Babe, what do you like most about training camp?
Boy, I like looking at all the young guys, Bill. And let's face it, I don't get a chance to see them all. You're doing NFL football on Sunday, so I watch college football out of the corner of my eye. But start with Jalen Tolbert, right? Third-round receiver. I'll be the first to tell you, I did not see a whole lot of South Alabama last year. So it's the opportunity to really see how they match up against established NFL players. And I'll pull back the curtain a little bit here, guys. I'll never forget Cowboys training camp, San Antonio. Sean Payton was the quarterback coach. I was friends with Sean, still am. But I went up to him a couple weeks into practice, and there was a kid there. They had a free agent quarterback out of Eastern Illinois. I believe his name was Tony Romo. And I went up to Sean after a couple of weeks and I said, hey, Sean, can I ask you? I said, this Romo guy, I said, he really seems to get through his progressions quickly and deliver the ball. And Sean says, yeah, he's doing okay. And I said, but, the ball comes out, he's accurate. He said, yeah, I mean, he's doing okay. And I said, okay, so I'm clearly seeing more in him than you are. I mean, I, Babe Laufenberg, will defer to Sean Payton. So I'm just thinking, okay, I got a misread here. Sean says, off the record? And I said, oh yeah, sure. He said, I love the guy. I love the guy. So there's always these training camp stories where you kind of see a guy, and I always try to get validation from somebody, either a scout or coach or somebody, to say, hey, am I seeing this correctly? So it was so funny when Sean just downplayed it, and then tells me, I love the guy.
By the way, along those lines, I mentioned at the end of our last podcast, Babe, which I'm sure you got all the way to the end of it, and so you've already heard this. But we're doing Cody. We're doing Cowboys preseason games. Babe and I are, and I was just thinking back the first year that we did Cowboys preseason games together was 2003. So this will be the 20th year this year.
Wow.
And so that 2003 was Tony Romo and Jason Witten's rookie year, and it was Bill Parcells' first year with the Cowboys. It was a game at the Arizona Cardinals, and Emmitt Smith was playing for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, he didn't play in that game, but.
Well, you know what I remember about that game, Bill? And you're exactly right. It was at Sun Devil Stadium. They were still playing at Arizona State. And I remember the Cowboys had literally a 3rd and 50. 3rd and 50. And I know Parcells was sitting there saying, what did I just get myself into?
Well, that's funny, babe. You talk about Romo. How about we transition to their current quarterback of the Cowboys, Dak Prescott. Last year was arguably his best season, a career high in completion percentage and touchdown passes, just 10 picks and a passer rating of 104. Do you think Dak has become one of those quarterbacks that can single-handedly carry an offense like a Brady or a Rodgers or a Mahomes?
I honestly don't think he's there yet. He did a little bit of that in the first part of last season, opened up against Tampa Bay, who they'll open up against again on a Sunday night, September 11th at AT&T Stadium. But I don't like the idea of having him throw the ball 50 times. I think Mahomes, you go into the game, you have no issue with him throwing 50. You have no issue with some of these guys. Dak, I don't want to say he's at his best. I think every quarterback is at his best when they run the ball a little bit and take some pressure off the quarterback, if you will. But you look at Dak's rookie year, he had 23 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and that team went 13-3. And that formula was running the ball, play action, play a little defense, keep your defense off the field. They really played to the strengths of what Dak could do and what Zeke Elliott at that time could do. And they tried to play away from the defense a little bit. And what's interesting too, guys, Jason Garrett, I don't think ever gets enough credit for that year. Dak Prescott, people forget this. He was a 4th round, 3rd string quarterback. Tony Romo got hurt in camp. Then Kellen Moore got hurt in camp. And so Dak played because he had to. And then that team goes off and goes 13-3 and could have been 14-2 if they wanted to win the last game. I think they played Philly in the last game of the season, but everything was already set up. So they could have won more games with Dak Prescott in his rookie year than any team in Cowboys history.
Babe, I'll take you back. Some of us so-called experts in the media, when the Cowboys went to camp that year, there was not only it was Tony Romo, Kellen Moore. Some of us had Dak Prescott as the 4th quarterback on the depth chart behind Jameel
Showers. Absolutely. I remember all that going on. And, we tend to forget all those things, don't we, Bill?
we try not to bring him up. I thought it at the time. I'm not sure I've seen enough out of this Dak guy. How about this? I know young Cody has seen this because he is a Madden guy. The most important rankings for quarterbacks for some people out there are the new Madden 23 quarterback rankings, and a lot of the players seem to, at least they comment on it on social media. Tom Brady's number 1, Aaron Rodgers 2, Patrick Mahomes 3, followed by Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and number 6 on the list, young Cody, Dak Prescott.
I like it. I think that's where he should eventually be after this season. I'm kind of with Babe, and Babe, I'd like your opinion. It sounds like you're kind of feeling the same way. Probably not there yet, but I think by the end of the season, Dak should be the 5th or 6th best quarterback in the league, especially if they can help him with the run game and kind of get back to the offense that they had early in his career.
Yeah, the other part of that, if you say you want to drop your quarterback back 40 or 50 times a game, I mean, what do you have around him? Can you protect them? Do you have receivers that make plays? To me, Kansas City was a great example of that. Had basically a top 5 receiver. You can rank him wherever you want. Where does Madden rank Tyreek Hill, Cody? You tell me. I'm not a Madden player.
I believe he's the number 3 wide receiver. I saw it this week.
Okay. And you had Travis Kelce. Where do we rank him? 2?
I think he's the number 1 tight end.
Okay. So when you got those kind of guys around you, yeah, let's drop back and throw the ball. But make no mistake about it, Dak does not have those type of players around him this year.
By the way, Kyler Murray, who just signed a contract in the neighborhood of $230 million, he's number 11 on the list, behind Matthew Stafford at number 10. 2 local Dallas guys right there. Okay, I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit here because, as you know, Babe, Cody, as he prepares, this is the NFL Network producer in Cody. And, of course, we go back with Cody to his days and Babe's days at CBS 11. And he has prepared a list and sent us a Google Doc of the list of questions that he would like to run down. And if we're going to reach every question on this list, every topic, we'll be here until the end of the week. So the next question on the list, Cody, if you want to ask him the question, I'll let you ask it, or I can ask it.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Bill.
Babe, you have any doubt Dak will lead a team to a Super Bowl?
You can see by my hesitation.
That's the definition of a doubt right there.
Well, exactly. Here's the thing about that. Is he capable of doing it? Yes. No doubt in my mind that he's good enough with a team around him to take a team to the Super Bowl. And I wouldn't say that about obviously all the quarterbacks. But here's the thing. Drew Brees played 20 years in the league. He threw for literally 80,000 yards. He went to one Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, right? 14 years as a starter. He's been to one Super Bowl. You're talking about two of the top fill in the blank 10 quarterbacks of all time. And they each went to one Super Bowl. So it's hard to get there. And what's especially intriguing to me is with those two guys, Aaron Rodgers and Brees, they didn't have to go through Tom Brady in New England. It's one thing when you were coming from the AFC. That was difficult because New England was going to be there every other year, and it was hard to get by them. Yeah. But for the NFC, and then, throw in Peyton Manning in that AFC as well. But it's just so hard to get there. It really is. The notion that this guy's going to win multiple Super Bowls and that guy's going to go. And I remember I was having a discussion. This was 2-3 years ago. I know pre-pandemic, so I guess it was 2019, and it was a playoffs, and I was talking to a guy who was very knowledgeable about football, but he said Lamar Jackson's going to win 2 or 3 Super Bowls before he finishes. And I just laughed, and I said, I did the Brady thing. Dan Fouts never went to one. Dan Marino got to one, never got back to one. These are all-time greats. And the notion that, we're going to just go win 2 or 3 of these. And of course, Lamar Jackson, who I'm a big fan of, by the way, he has not been to a Super Bowl. It doesn't mean he won't go, but it's just really hard to get there.
All right, babe. Let's talk about the running backs, because last time you were on last summer, I asked the question, is Zeke Elliott still an elite running back? Since then, he had a 1,000-yard season, but only 4.2 yards a carry, 26th in the league amongst running backs. So I'm going to ask you the same question this year. Is Zeke still an elite running back?
Well, I want to get to that 1,000-yard season first. You know what 1,000 yards is in today's 17-game schedule? It's 59 yards a game.
Yep.
So if your running back comes out of a game with 59 yards, the other team is saying, wow, we shut them down. So the 1,000-yard back was a product of the 12-game season, right? And it's like, that was a benchmark, and that was awesome. You're averaging about 80, 85 yards a game there, right? To get to 1,000 in the 12 game. Then they went to 14, then they went to 16. Now we're at 17, and we're still talking about 1,000-yard back. But I'm going to believe Zeke is the player that he was when I see it. And I really do need to see it. I think everyone needs to see it. Doesn't mean he can't get there. He has taken a pounding, but he's still a relatively young back. I believe he's 27 years old. And he did have the knee issue last year. He certainly looked better in the first couple of games than he did, for the last 13, 12 games of the season. But he certainly didn't have a burst last year. He could not buy a 10-yard run to save his life.
Hey, funny you mentioned the 1,000-yard backs and how it should be relatively easy. I just looked it up. 7 guys in the NFL had 1,000 yards rushing last year. So how about that?
Yeah, and I think that's a byproduct of 2 things. Number one, obviously they don't run the ball as much as they once did. And number 2, so many teams are 2-back offenses where they're shuttling in and out. They don't have that workhorse, Adrian Peterson, give it to him 30 times a game guy.
For sure.
Okay, so are the Cowboys a 2-back offense with Tony Pollard? And Tony Pollard, by the way, ran for 719 yards last year. Cody mentioned Zeke's yards per carry, 4.2 last year, and Pollard was at 5.5 yards a carry. And in the passing game, 8.6 yards a catch, as he had 39 catches last year on 46 targets. So when you total up rushing and receiving, Tony Pollard was up over 1,000 yards from scrimmage last year.
Yeah, My one complaint, if you will, of the Cowboys offense last year was the inability to get Tony Pollard the football. And as I often say to Brad Sham, our play-by-play man on the Dallas Cowboys radio network, who's been doing it for 40 years, people say, hey, we got to get this guy the football or that guy the football. And I always say, it's easy. It's easy to get him the ball. You hand it to him or you throw it to him. That's, two ways we can do this. I don't care which way you do it, but you can see Zeke was not the same Zeke Elliott last year. And every time Tony Pollard was in the game, good things happened and big plays happened. And again, I don't get into a lot of second guessing of play calling and God, they got to be in 11 personnel and not 12 or 21 and all this. I don't get into that, but I do get into what are they not seeing that everyone else is seeing here? And that is Tony Pollard is their most productive running back. Now, I'm not saying he supplant Zeke as the starter because Zeke does a lot of things that Tony Pollard can't do. Number one, pass blocking. But to not have gotten Tony Pollard the ball more last year, I don't want to say it was criminal, but I thought that was one of the biggest deficiencies of the Cowboys offense last year, or at least their scheme.
Let me ask you about this, babe, because I'm interested. We talked about this briefly when we talked yesterday. To me, if I'm running the Cowboys offense, I have Zeke and Pollard on the field almost every snap. They are two of their three best weapons, in my opinion. And so why not just move? Pollard can move around. He can play in the slot. He can be in the backfield. I don't see why they don't have those guys on the field almost every snap together.
Well, I don't know that that's really a viable option. And by the way, Cody, if you are the offensive coordinator for a team, I'm betting the other team heavy.
Fair enough.
Okay. Bet till your hands bleed.
Fair enough.
I remember, hey, Bill will remember this, Cody. I don't know if you're old enough, but I was in Washington with the then Redskins, now Commanders, and John Riggins was there. They traded for George Rogers, who was a Heisman Trophy winner, traded for him out of New Orleans. And everybody started talking about, oh, this two-back offense, right? Media, fans. Oh, we have these two backs. And Riggins said, I hope he plans on playing fullback because he said, I ain't blocking for him. So when you put those two guys on the field, that's great. But who's blocking for who there, Cody?
Fair enough. I mean, I think Zeke is a decent blocker and, like we'll see. But I think you can be really creative with those two guys on the field. Same, even if, again, one's in the slot, one's out wide, one's in motion, whatever it is. I just think you can do a lot with Tony Pollard and be multi-dimensional.
Well, I do agree with you. And I do think there should be and will be a package of plays where they're both on the field. But if you're going to play Zeke at running back, and then we're going to say, let's put Tony Pollard in the slot. Well, is Tony Pollard a better slot receiver than your wide receiver who would be playing that position? And he's not really a wide out. He's very versatile, but he's not going to be able to run the same types of routes that a wide receiver will. So there is a little conundrum in getting both those guys on the field at the same time. But I wouldn't be surprised if each game, there are 5 to 10 plays where you see both of them on the field at the same time.
Back in the days you're talking about with Washington, I had a good friend who he was a big Washington fan. And sometimes we'd watch the Cowboys play Washington together. And his fight song for Washington, his slogan was, hey, diddle, diddle, Riggins up the middle. And so, yeah, I remember that well. All right, which when we're talking about Pollard and in particular, playing some more in the slot, how concerned are you about what the Cowboys have at the receiver position right now, considering the fact that Amari Cooper is now with the Cleveland Browns, Cedric Wilson is now with the Miami Dolphins, Michael Gallup starting the camp on PUP and going to miss at least the first 4 weeks of the season, I think, although there's a possibility he could get ready for the start of the regular season, September 11th. How concerned are you?
I would say very concerned. There's kind of a leap of faith everyone is making that CeeDee Lamb is going to be now Devontae Adams because he's now the number one receiver, that James Washington wasn't used properly in Pittsburgh. And the list goes on and on of things where you're just kind of keeping your fingers crossed and hoping and trying to draw a conclusion from things. You mentioned Cedric Wilson, Bill, and he was about the best third down receiver the Cowboys had. Now, some of that was a byproduct of, he's not drawing double coverage, but he was very productive on third down. think he averaged 19 yards a catch on third down. He was right up at the top in terms of touchdowns scored on third down. So that was a big loss for him. And I'll go back very quickly. If you remember the 2018 season, the year they traded for Amari Cooper, right? And let me say this, say what you will about Amari Cooper. If they don't make that trade in 2018, the Cowboys don't make the playoffs because he totally changed that offense for those last 8 games of the season. But I remember Cowboys were playing San Francisco 49ers in the preseason. I'm at this team hotel, Jason Garrett's there. I have a car. We go over to Stanford, where I went my freshman year. And I don't think he'd ever been on the campus, but he knew David Shaw, the head coach, and had some contact. And anyway, we drove over, met with the coaching staff at Stanford that day. And on the drive back, I said, hey, Jason, I don't get involved in your coaching. And I really didn't. We'd bounce a lot of football stuff off, but I didn't say, hey, you got to play this guy, play that guy. That wasn't my job. But I said, your receivers, and I saw it in camp, Bill. I said, your receivers are not going to win. They're not going to go out and single up and win routes. And I said, you've got to get something in here. And then I said, hey, I apologize if I overstepped my bounds here. And he said, no. He said, I want your opinion. I said, but Dak is not going to have the weapons. Everybody's going to say Dak can't do it. He's not the guy. And that season started first 8 games. People forget this. That was the exact mantra. Dak Prescott isn't the guy. Well, he had nobody to throw to, basically. He had a lot of kind of third receivers on most teams.
Cody
and so
Beasley.
this year you've got CD Lamb. And again, you're hoping he makes that next jump. But, I've got to see all of this. I've got to see all of it. So I could see the same thing happening that happened in 2018.
Babe, I really think they're going to regret not signing Cedric Wilson. $7 million a year for Cedric Wilson. I mean, again, I'm with you. He was the 4th receiver, but for most of the year, he was the 3rd receiver because someone was out or injured
Right.
or whatever. And I thought he was one of the upper echelon number 3 receivers. And not only that, but they just have a real weakness at wide receiver. And I agree with you. It's going to come back to hurt them. Hey, let's switch to the offensive line quickly. Some shake up there. Lyle Collins is a Bengal. Bill Jones, boy. Connor Williams is a Dolphin.
What?
There, Bill. That's your guy. That's your guy, Bill. They did use their 1st round pick on Tyler
Wait,
Smith.
Hold on.
I'm not letting you defend yourself. Everybody knows it's true.
Wait a second. Do you see the color of this room?
I love it.
The
You
red
said-
room.
You
The red
told
room.
me.
Okay. I've got on the wall over here, green, South Lake Carroll green. Okay. Number 1, Connor Williams is a Coppell Cowboy. It was our big rival. I say our, not my kids. Big rival was Coppell, although one of my daughters married a Coppell Cowboy now that I think about it.
Family.
And then Connor Williams was a Texas Longhorn. I will say that
Bill.
Connor Williams' uncle, the great Tony Serta, was a great running back at Irving High School. And so from that standpoint, Connor Williams has my utmost respect because Tony Serta used to run over me whenever we played Irving High School. Go ahead, Cody.
All right. So everybody heard it on a podcast when you said Connor Williams actually played pretty well last year. That was about 2 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. And I was like, well, didn't he lead the league in penalties or something like that? But anyway, let's keep going with the question. Anyway, there's shakeup on the Cowboys offensive line. Thankfully, Connor Williams is gone from my perspective. Babe, what do you think about the Cowboys O-line this year? Will it be better than last year? What's your kind of view on that?
Well, what I do think is funny, Cody, you talked about the penalties. And yes, indeed, Connor Williams led the NFL in penalties and holding penalties. And quite honestly, by a large margin.
Yep.
Well, the guy they just drafted with the 1st round pick had 16 penalties last year in 12 games. So Tyler Smith. So they're kind of keeping that flow going there at left guard. But I do agree with Bill now. Connor Williams was not a bad player. He had a lot of bad penalties, but you take away those penalties and you just put the tape on and he did a decent job. Now, I know that's a little bit like saying, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how'd you like to play? But
Thank you.
Yeah, but he really did not do, he was not a liability on most plays over there. Again, you get those holding penalties like he had, and I think it was 13 or 14 by the end of the year. Those are they're drive killers. And when they're drive killers, then they're point killers because you get nothing out of that drive. And as we all know, those drives are precious. You get about 10 or 11 of them in a game, and you get a holding penalty, and all of a sudden you're in 2nd and 20 or 3rd and 20. Those are difficult to overcome.
Okay, switching over to defense. Dan Quinn in his first year as a defensive coordinator last year. We know all about the takeaways and the turnaround with the defense, and he was a prime candidate to get one of those open head coaching jobs. But he is staying in Dallas. How important is it that the Cowboys were able to retain Dan Quinn for at least one more year here?
Yeah, I thought it was huge. He did a fantastic job. Now, the interesting thing too, when he came from Atlanta did not play great defense. They played good defense in that Super Bowl year, but other than that, the defenses were not great. Now, a coach is only as good as his players. People have to have a better grasp of that. Sean Payton was a genius in New Orleans, and then they didn't have Drew Brees last year, and they finished last in the NFL in passing. So he's still designing the same plays, drawing them up, but when you don't have that guy back there. So I think Dan Quinn did have a lot to work with here. Micah Parsons, obviously, great pick last year at number 11. I don't think anybody saw all that coming of what he did. And quite honestly, I think to a certain extent, give Dan Quinn credit, try saying that fast 3 times, for moving him around and making him that type of player. But I remember the Cowboys played the Chargers and they were kind of out of defensive ends. So it was out of necessity that Micah had to kind of go outside a little bit and put his hand on the ground and kind of play that defensive end role, if you will. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, this is pretty good. We kind of like this. And so then it morphed into obviously what we saw throughout the season for Micah. And I do laugh, guys, too. You're going to read it a lot, and I've already read it this offseason. People say, well, now teams are going to be ready for Micah Parsons. And I'm like, if you weren't watching last year and didn't see it about week 4, hey, this guy, we're going to have to figure out a way to handle this guy. You're asleep at the switch. Now, other coaches, when they came into games, they did not need to come back and review the tape this offseason and say, wow, that Micah Parsons is pretty good over there. They were gearing things up for him last year. So it's a chess game, as we know, and Dan Quinn's going to figure out some new ways to use him, put him in some different spots that they probably didn't see last year from Micah. And boy, what a terrific player he is, though, huh?
Babe, one of the big things on defense was the takeaways last year. Obviously, if you look at some of the numbers, they actually have a lot of room for improvement this year. 19th in yards, 21st in red zone. They were tied for 27th in big plays. So the defense wasn't just all around great, but they did do a good job getting the ball from the opposing team takeaways. Do you think that that's a product of Dan Quinn's system and is something that can actually continue this year?
Was it a product of Dan Quinn's system? I think it's the players you have, again, going back to, you can have all the schemes you want offensively and defensively. If you don't have the players, you're not going anywhere. Trayvon Diggs, obviously exceptional ball skills, exceptional anticipation. Trayvon Diggs is interesting too. Obviously 11 interceptions, first guy to do that since another Cowboy, Everson Walls, and I believe, Bill, 1981.
That's right.
Would that be okay? And I also used to say about Tony Romo, you put on his touchdown reel and you put on his interception reel and they look the same. He's scrambling, he's moving, the ball's coming out and it's a touchdown and we all go crazy. And then he does the same thing and it's an interception. They're like, what's he thinking? Trayvon Diggs was the same guy on the defensive side. You look at the interception reel, say, wow, what anticipation. Look at him jump that route. Look at this. And then he gave up a lot of big plays because he did take those chances. But I do like being able to take the ball away from the other team the way he did. So I would live with those big plays he's giving up in order to get the football back. And I think we've seen, it's year in and year out, and statistics will prove it. I don't have them in front of me. Teams can be number 1 in the NFL in takeaways one year and then go to the middle of the pack the one year. It was first to last. Might have been Chicago, but the takeaways are an odd thing. They're not a real consistent metric if you look at teams over the course of 5 seasons but again, even year to year. So If we're saying, well, we're going to rely on taking the football away, I don't know that that's a good game plan.
I want to get back on Micah for just a moment, because there was a lot of talk. Okay, because he had so many sacks, that okay, making an edge rusher, and but the Cowboys are saying he's a linebacker, use him as an edge rusher. What do you think of the deployment of Micah Parsons and what they can do with him now going into his second year?
Yeah, I think kind of doing a lot of what they did last year, moving him around. When the offense breaks the huddle, you don't necessarily know that guy is always over here, over my left tackle, over my right tackle. You got to find him, right? You got to find, where is he? And then you got to set protection to him. That said, you knew where Reggie White was going to be, but you just couldn't block him. So you knew where LT was going to be. They played that 3-4 and you just couldn't block him. So I do like the versatility. Micah is so fast. He can run sideline to sideline. I love the versatility that he brings in terms of he can be an off-ball backer and go chase football down on the other end of the field. And then he can be that off-ball backer or get to that defensive end spot and go rush the passer. So I think they used him great last year, and complete confidence in Dan Quinn that he's going to find even bigger and better ways to use him this year.
Babe, let's talk about Mike McCarthy. Returns for his third season there in Dallas. 18-15 as a head coach as his record. What do you consider McCarthy's strength?
I think he has a good pulse of the team. What I like about Mike McCarthy is he really has a genuine respect for the players and what they go through and what they put their bodies through. Probably more so than any coach I've ever seen. And that would include Jason Garrett, who was an NFL player. Wade Phillips didn't play in the NFL. Bill Parcells didn't play in the NFL. But McCarthy, I think, really does have a good pulse for the team. That said, he's probably he's undoubtedly the most hands-off coach I've ever seen in 40 years of being around college and professional football.
Oh, hold on. Does that include Barry Switzer?
Hey, you know what? You might have got me there, Bill. But especially though, for a guy in McCarthy, who was a offensive coordinator, who was a play caller in Green Bay for obviously many, many years. But he kind of stands off to the side and lets his coaches kind of coach. Now, I don't like the term walk around coach, but effectively that's what Jimmy Johnson was. He didn't run the offense or the defense, but he was, you remember him, Bill, you go to training camp, he's here with the defensive linemen. Then he's running down here with the quarterbacks. Then he's over here. And I think Jason Garrett, once he gave up play calling duties, was kind of the same way. He was involved in all aspects of what was being coached on the field, and he'd jump in and coach as well. But it's just very odd. You don't see that from Mike McCarthy.
And how about this? November 13th. And it's no coincidence. It's a November game, which is a prime TV game. The Cowboys head to Lambeau Field. Mike McCarthy heads back to Green Bay.
The best thing about that game too, Bill, the Cowboys have a bye week the week before. So there's going to be a 2-week buildup of that game, at least in Dallas. I believe Green Bay plays Detroit the previous week, so they will not be off. The Cowboys will. Another interesting byline to that story is the fact that Tom Clements, the quarterback coach, is back in Green Bay. Now, if you recall, Tom Clements took over play calling duties. McCarthy made him the play caller for 1 year. He didn't last the season. McCarthy took those play calling duties away from Clements. Matter of fact, it was the week of the Cowboys game at Lambeau that year. And I think there's a little bit of bad blood there. So Clements had left. He actually had retired. He was with Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona for a couple of years. And anyway, he comes back, and Aaron Rodgers gives Tom Clements, the quarterback coach, probably more credit for his career than any other coach that he's played for. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic going on there as well. And trust me, they're going to ask Clements about the demotion that year, and he left, and he's going to say, "Oh, we're good now. Everything's fine." And McCarthy's going, "Oh, everything's fine," and don't buy it.
Babe, I wanted to ask actually both of you guys this. Last time Mike McCarthy won a playoff game was 2016. Do you guys happen to remember that game? You guys are both probably at that game, as a matter of fact. Remember that 51-yard Mason Crosby to win it? That's his last playoff win, huh?
Yeah, it was
or that field goal more so than the field goal itself. It was Rodgers to Jared Cook.
Yeah, true. Exactly.
third and 19, 3rd and 20. I don't know what it officially became. And I just like, that didn't just happen. I also remember the play before that, Bill, on the 3rd and 19 that they converted. Jeff Heath blitzed off the backside and Aaron Rodgers never saw him. And it was one of those, Aaron was in the pocket. Jeff Heath puts a helmet in the back, and my eyes were, the anticipatory nature of that is, okay, here comes the ball's going to come out. I don't know how Aaron Rodgers held on to the ball. And that kind of gets overlooked a little bit, but Heath sacked him. That brought him into the 3rd and 19. And then that just crazy throw that only Aaron Rodgers can make. But I also remember DeMarcus Lawrence. It was a 3-man rush, and they played the shark, and DeMarcus Lawrence looped inside. That allowed Aaron Rodgers to go to the outside, and that bought all that time for Jared Cook to get from one side of the field. Now, this is a tight end, right? Lining up on one side of the field, getting to the other sideline, 20 yards downfield. You don't have time to make that throw, but he did, because again, DeMarcus Lawrence took the inside rush. Rodgers looped outside. Now all of a sudden he had all day out there.
That was a more haunting end to a playoff game for the Cowboys than the end of the game in January, don't you think? The final 14 seconds of the game against the 49ers.
I would say yes, because I think, number one, that team was that Cowboys team was a better team. Obviously, they were playing Green Bay at home. I don't want to say they didn't have that game won necessarily, but yeah, I mean, if you said here's the scenario, you're going to get him in this position, you say take that 100 out of 100 times. But problem was they had Aaron Rodgers and you didn't.
and the other part of that, when you look at the San Francisco game this year, the Cowboys lost by 6. I mean, if they were able to get another snap off, they weren't kicking a field goal to tie the game. They still had to score a touchdown.
Right. And quite honestly, they climbed back into that, and I give them a lot of credit for that, but they were getting blown out of that football game. The 49ers were a better football team. And that's why I found it so interesting too, that after the game, you know, the whole mantra was, gosh, how did we lose? We just lost to the 49ers. And I want to say, well, they were a better football team, not just that day. If those two teams had played 10 times, San Francisco probably wins 6 or 7 of them.
You know, the other thing about on that San Francisco, I was actually watching that game from home that day. Okay. And when I saw Deebo Samuel and the 49ers come on the field with his boombox, and they looked like they were walking on the field like they were the 90s Cowboys. and then I see the Cowboys come on the field, and Mike McCarthy in his press conference maybe in the next day said something about he felt like his team was nervous he used that word. I probably regret using that word right prior to the game. But I remember telling my wife at the time, I said, wow, I don't feel good about this from a Cowboys perspective right now.
Do you happen to know what music Deebo Samuel was playing? Did that factor into it?
I do not.
Hey, I always go back, and I know Mike McCarthy did use the word nervous, and I, like you say, Bill, I'm sure he regretted it. And but I always say, I tell kids, you know, your body tells you you're about to do something different, and if your body doesn't tell you that, you're really not ready to play. Hey, Troy Aikman hyperventilated before the first Super Bowl. He goes out on the field, he's hyperventilating. He doesn't even know if he's gonna be able to stand up. And I always loved Joe Montana. Joe Montana said, if I don't have butterflies in my stomach in the locker room before the game, I'm not ready to play. So,
and Drew Pearson throw up on the sideline. So there.
Yeah. So I didn't get. You should be a little nervous. You should be a little. You know, your body's telling you, hey, we're about to do something different. But then obviously, you know, the ball gets kicked off 2 plays in, all that's gone, and you're back to playing your sport.
Babe, let's talk about the NFC East. Where do you think the Cowboys stack up in the division this year?
I always tend to go with who has the best quarterback in the division. And I think the Cowboys clearly have the best quarterback. It'll be interesting to see the development of Jalen Hurts. And I know, Bill is partial to him with that. I see the coloring in the background for Hurts.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no.
No, come on.
No.
See,
In
welcome
fact,
welcome to my world, babe. When he wants to use the red room to like help his argument, he does. When
Right.
he wants to go against it, then he can do that too.
I
the
love it.
all-important Madden ratings have Jalen Hurts at 24th in the league, by the way. So go
Ah.
ahead.
So there's a Rolling Stone song where they say, get off the fence, it's creasing your butt. That's like Bill Jones right there, right? Come on. But, Philadelphia, I know you guys documented it on one of your previous podcasts I was listening to on the elliptical about the offseason that they had. And they really did have when you look at, is Philadelphia better today than they were when they got beat by Tampa Bay in that playoff game last year? And the answer is an unequivocal yes. And if you look at this Cowboys team, where we are sitting and talking today, are they as good as the team that walked off the field after getting beat by the 49ers? And they're not as good. Doesn't mean that guys aren't going to jump up and somebody's going to become a player. We had no idea. But as we sit here today, the Cowboys are not as good and Philadelphia is better. Now, Cowboys were a lot better last year. So how much that gap is closed, I don't know, but there's no question the gap between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys has closed from the time the season ended last year to, again, where we sit today.
Okay, as the Cowboys head to Oxnard and start training camp, are you prepared at this point in your preseason preparations to make a Super Bowl pick?
Actually, I am. And I want to, if I may, I'm going to get to one quick training camp story in Oxnard. We led with it in the Tony Romo, Sean Payton down in San Antonio. But I remember I'm down there, I'm in Oxnard, I'm watching practice, and I really do. I love watching training camp practice. You get to see a lot. Stuff you don't get to see, obviously, during the regular season. So anyway, Rod Marinelli, Cowboys defensive line coach and defensive coordinator, he is screaming at his defensive linemen. And if you've ever been around Rod Marinelli or watched the practice, sweetest guy in the world, but that practice starts and he flips a switch. And Rod Marinelli was a Marine, but he swears like a sailor on the field. And he is MFing guys and screaming and cussing. And he says, I'm not taking this bleep anymore. I am not putting up with this bleep. I am tired of this bleep. I am not putting up with it. Not putting up with it. I talked to him after the practice. I said, hey, Rod, I listened to you talking and yelling about you not putting up with it. It was the first day of practice, guys. It was the first padded practice. This has been like, it'd been going on for like 40 days and 40 nights. And he said, oh, you can't let up on these guys for a minute. But I just loved it. Like, again, it seemed like, it would have been week 4 of training camp. And okay, I'm tired of this. I was like, Rod, it was your first practice. Okay, so the Super Bowl, though. 2 years ago, who won it? 2 years ago.
Are you
Come on.
Stop,
Tampa
Cody?
Bay. Tampa
Yep.
Bay.
Tampa Bay over Kansas City.
Buccaneers.
Who was the quarterback?
Tom Brady.
How long had he been there?
He was. Oh, I know where you're going.
Okay. Who won the Super Bowl last year?
That would be
Rams.
the Rams.
Who was the quarterback?
Matthew Stafford.
How long had he been there?
1 year.
First year.
Which big name all-star 9-time Pro Bowl quarterback switched teams this year?
Wow, Russell Wilson.
Hey, Denver's defense last year, they were 3rd in the NFL in points allowed. And Bill, you and I obviously got a chance to see them firsthand when they came to AT&T Stadium and just completely shut down the Cowboys offense. Cowboys scored twice late to make it like 31-16, but they could do nothing against that defense. I know Vic Fangio, who obviously got fired last year after that season, is saying, okay, wait a minute. I played with all these other quarterbacks, including, by the way, a wide receiver at quarterback for a game. And now you guys give him Russell Wilson? Fangio must be saying, come on now. Seriously, who's playing the joke on me here? But as my wild card pick, again, Denver's played such great defense, love their running back. I am a big Russell Wilson fan. I I would not count them out. But as we all know, that AFC is a tough road to hoe. They are quarterbacks galore over there that you're going to have to get through once you get to the playoffs.
So are you saying if you pick the Broncos to win the Super Bowl, that would be a first-year head coach winning a Super Bowl and Nathaniel Hackett?
Yeah.
Are you saying that Nathaniel Hackett just might be George Seifert?
Well, there you go. Now, of course, Seifert took over a Super Bowl winning team.
True. Okay, so he's Don McCafferty then.
Yeah.
First
Yeah, there you go.
To win.
Yeah, here's what I know about Nathaniel Hackett, Bill. His dad was the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at USC and recruited me to USC. That's when you're getting old. When the head coach, now this isn't a guy breaking down film, right? This is the head coach of the Denver Broncos. I'm going to go up to him when the Cowboys practice against him. I'll be out there. I'm going to say, hey, Nathaniel, just want to say hello. Tell your dad I said hello. And sorry he wasn't a better recruiter, because if I go on to USC, probably been a 3-year starter. Instead, I go to Stanford. John Elway comes the next year. And that's why I'm a proud graduate of Indiana University now.
By the way, the same Paul Hackett who once upon a time, young Cody back in the 80s, was the heir apparent to Tom Landry.
Yes.
Cowboys.
Wow, I didn't know that. Babe, you did mention it's going to be a tough road for your Broncos. According to Vegas, 3 of the top 8 teams of odds to win the Super Bowl are all in the AFC West.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Chargers are all amongst the top 8 teams to win the Super Bowl. So yeah,
what do those 3 teams all have in common?
Megastar quarterbacks.
There you go.
Yep.
Now I will say this: I do like Justin Herbert, and there's nothing not to like, but he hasn't ascended to that level that some of these other guys have. You know, we saw Josh Allen do it in the playoffs last year. The Kansas City game was obviously phenomenal. He had no business not winning that game, but we saw him do it. We know Russell Wilson has done it, can do it. We know about Patrick Mahomes. Herbert has all the talent in the world, but again, you know, you still have to see him do it. But there's no question, talented player. And as you mentioned, Cody, 3 of the top 8 Super Bowl favorites, I guess, betting wise, are out of that AFC West, and because they have quarterbacks. And I guarantee you the other one, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, right?
Yep.
You know the quarterbacks that they have. Buffalo. Yeah. So you know
and
what?
The Rams, who you also met. The Rams.
There you go. Just go to the top 8 quarterbacks in the league, and those will be the top 8 teams favored to get to the Super Bowl or win it.
And by the way, according to the Madden ratings, Dak Prescott ranks just ahead of Justin Herbert and Russell Wilson, as Dak is number 6, Herbert 7, and Wilson 8.
How about that?
So you heard it here first. It's a Dallas-Denver Super Bowl. Okay. Babe, we appreciate it. And I think this is one that you might want to listen to again on the elliptical.
Well, let me tell you this. For the uninitiated tuning in for the first time, I get on the elliptical at my gym and I put on Jonesing for Football and I listen to the entire podcast. And I'm always hopeful. I never look at how long it runs. You know, you can see on the bottom, it tells you how long it runs. I never look at that because I don't want to say, okay, I got 3 minutes now, 2, now a minute. I want you guys to do like an hour and a half podcast so I can get in better shape, and I'll just be on that thing. They may need to, I want them to call 911 because I've fallen out. I've had a heart attack. That's how long I want the next podcast to be.
All right. So you time your workout according to how long Jonesing for Football lasts.
I do.
Yeah. Great. All right.
Well,
appreciate it. I can't wait to see you in Oxnard. And by the way, first preseason game for the Cowboys at Russell Wilson and the eventual Super Bowl champion, Denver. Hey, we appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I love you both. You know that. Thank you.